Welcome back, Sebastian here. So today I'm going to be doing my Formula E power rankings after the Portland ePrix, which was, by the way, a fantastic race that we had yesterday. So starting right away in number 22, I have dropping one position from last race, Roberto Meri. So for Meri, a bit of a tough race, retired on lap 5, so didn't really get to do much running. That being said, was out-qualified by his teammate. But that being said, not really much more he could have done. Number 21, dropping 2 positions, is Sergio Sette Camara in 21st. Not a lot to say. Was out-qualified by his teammate, again, Dan Ticktum, which has been happening probably a bit too much for his liking this year, and was behind him in the race, so not really a whole lot to say on that front. Number 20, dropping 1 position with another really rough weekend, is Andre Lauderer. So was away last time out in Jakarta, comes back this weekend, and had a pretty rough race. Finished in 19th, I believe. Yes. While his teammate was on the podium, which has unfortunately been the tale of Lauderer's season so far this year. Has been miles behind his teammate. Not a great race again today for Lauderer. Number 19, this driver had a bit of a better race today, and that was René Rast in the McLaren. So I think it was very clear to me pretty early on that while the Nissan powered cars, so the Nissan and the McLaren, had exceptionally good qualifying pace, the race pace was just not there. The traditional teams that we've seen be incredibly strong in the race, Envision, Andretti, Porsche, Jaguar, were the ones that kind of rose to the top as the race progressed. And the Nissans, who qualified extremely well, kind of all fell to the back. So I don't really blame Rast too much on that, given that all 4 of them fell quite a lot. But that being said, a bit of a rough weekend for him. Number 18, dropping 2 positions, the other McLaren driver, Jake Hughes. Was out-qualified by Rast and did finish behind him in the race. Not really a whole lot to say. We didn't get to see a lot of him. That being said, not a great race for either of them. Now, number 17, actually rising 1 position because a bunch of other drivers fell. And this driver was actually higher up until they were given a penalty after the race. And of course, this is Sam Bird in 17th. So he originally finished 7th. Yeah, 7th, I believe. But was given a penalty for contact with Gunther at the very end of the race. So unfortunate for him, didn't look like that. Did seem like a bit of a harsh penalty. Didn't seem like that much contact. But that being said, he was given a penalty. He dropped well out of the points. But nonetheless, I am moving him up 1 position because I did think he had a pretty good race overall and was a bit better than Hughes, for example. Number 16, moving up 1 position, I believe, who was actually having a pretty decent race until they went into the pit lane for reasons we don't know, and that was Edo Mortara. So for Mortara, he qualified, had a bit of a struggle in qualifying, but in the race he was up in a really good position, was up in about 7th or 8th place, and then suddenly had to come into the pit. So a bit of a rough weekend for him. Looked like he could have gotten some good points today. Now let's see, number 15, number 15, staying in the same position for now, but that being said, this driver did have a good weekend, I thought, and that was Norman Nato. Really good weekend, I thought, for Nato. Does get points, P9 this weekend. Qualified really highly as well, but that being said, I think he probably would have been hoping for a bit more this past weekend in Portland. Now, number 14 is a driver moving down 7 positions, and they probably should be behind Nato, but they've been really good before this past race. So I'm like, no, I'll keep them in 14th. They've already dropped enough. Maybe after Rome, if this driver has another bad weekend, they'll be down here somewhere. And this driver is, of course, Nico Müller, really rough weekend for him. He got that front wing damage, was then given a 5-second penalty after retiring, and of course had that big shunt where he basically lost the car. He said that the brakes weren't there, so that being said, most likely mechanical issue, but that being said, still getting that 5-second penalty, doesn't finish the race, his teammates in the points. So not overall really rough weekend for Müller. Number 13, moving down 5 positions, is another driver who had a bit of a rough weekend, and that is Sasha Fenestraz. Fenestraz started on the front row so long ago. I know it's hard to remember that he actually started on the front row. Was having a really good race, had that contact with his teammate. I know it seemed really innocuous, really harmless, but you know, everyone else managed to get through. He was one of only a handful of drivers who did end up getting damage, and he actually his was severe enough that he actually had to pit at the end of the first safety car period. So a bit of a rough go for Fenestraz. Of course, then he seemed to have another issue that sent him all the way to the back after he moved his way up. So all around, not a great race for Fenestraz. Number 12, moving down 1 position. I think this driver had an okay weekend, but not great. And he mostly just moves down because other drivers moved up, and that is Dan Ticktum. Qualified all right, and in the race, I to be honest, never expected Ticktum to be able to get points today. The Neo is not efficient enough, and in a race like this where qualifying didn't really matter, and it was really about, and track position didn't matter, it was really about having that efficiency. The Neos, I thought, were never really on for a big points finish. So, you know, not terrible for Ticktum though. Let's see, number 11, moving up 2 positions, and that is Sebastian Buemi. So Buemi managed to recover after pretty rough qualifying for all of the Jaguar-powered cars. He does get up to 6th. His teammate did win the race though, so I can't really move him up too much higher. But that being said, he did get points. That's from a pretty poor qualifying position, so that is a good step for Buemi. Number 10, moving down 1 position, and I don't know, this driver was honestly hard for me to decide what to do with, and that is the first of the 2 DS Penske's. So the Penske's, they were effectively disqualified from qualifying after spying. The team was spying allegedly on other teams during qualifying with their sensor. They say they weren't. I mean, I think we need more information. I can't really say one way or another what they were doing with their sensors, but anyway, it led to Van Doren basically starting from the back of the field. He did move his way up to 14th. That being said, I did think his teammate Vern looked better than him most of the race, so that's why he's only 10th. Number 9, driver who had a rough weekend was Pascal Wehrlein, and took a big dent to his championship aspirations, dropping to 3rd in the championship. Finished P9 on the road, moves up to P8 because of Bird's penalty. I don't know. I don't really know what to say. I think he, you know, Evans started behind him and he finished P4, whereas Wehrlein basically only got to P9 on the road. So he just seemed to be struggling. His teammate looked great. His teammate finished P2 in the race today, and I don't know. It wasn't a very good race from Wehrlein, was it? So he moves down 5 positions in my power rankings. Number 8 is dropping 2 positions, although not really because of any fault of his own, is Jean-Eric Verne. Like his teammate Van Doren, had to start from the pit lane. Looked like he could have been finishing top 5, top 6, but then it looked like he used too much power to get to that position, so then he dropped basically to the same level of his teammate. So it's hard to say if he was just that much better than Van Doren, or they decided as a team to strategically do something different, have one driver try to use a bit more energy and hope for maybe a late safety car, and then no added laps after that. But yeah, not a great race from Jev. Number 7, this driver had an absolutely fantastic race, and it got even better after the race when another driver got moved down, and that was Lucas di Grassi, who finished 7th in his Mahindra. You know, if you told me before the weekend that Mahindra was going to finish 7th, I think I wouldn't have believed you, because, you know, this is a track where qualifying didn't really matter, efficiency is key, and this was a Mahindra that probably has the worst efficiency on the grid. But somehow the Mahindra managed to finish in 7th place, and he got good haul points for the team and got them past Neo in the team's championship. So great for him. Another driver driving a Mahindra powered car who had a really good weekend, I thought, was this guy, Robin Fines. Robin Fines finished in 10th in the Apt car. That car's been off all weekend, and basically a lot of the things I just said about di Grassi, so I can be saying about Fines. Qualified pretty well, I thought, for him, and just kind of kept it clean in the race and managed to finish in 10th. In a race I did not expect him to finish in 10th. So again, the top 5. The first driver, and you know, all of these drivers here from like 5 down to about 13th, 12th. They were all very close together, so a lot of this is based on recent performance. The performance just today, whereas for kind of the overall trend is mostly for the last 3-4 races. But yeah, these drivers here were very close, and the driver at the top of that list was the driver who I think had a very good race today, and that was Antonio Felix da Costa. For da Costa, he started kind of low, but then brought his way up to the field about a quarter of the way to a third of the way through the race. Took the lead on lap 20 and started and was the driver that kind of broke the peloton that was forming for the early stages of the race. That led to kind of the field kind of breaking apart and led to a really well-deserved podium for him in the end in P3. Now, number 4, I thought, this driver had a good weekend based on what had happened. But that being said, I had to move them down, and that is Mitch Evans. Started P20, couldn't qualify. I think they were lucky that this was a track where you could overtake, and if you had to start P20 any track, this was the one to do it on. The other thing as well was that the Jaguar power cars were pretty bad in qualifying, so he honestly probably didn't lose that much in terms of starting position. It wasn't like they were going to be starting, all the other Jaguar power teams were starting in the top 4. But that being said, really good recovery drive for Evans from 20th to 4th. Now 3rd, moving up 2 positions. I probably could have moved him up higher, but I said no, 2 positions is enough, and that is Nick Cassidy in 3rd. So Cassidy in 3rd, really excellent race. He's going to be wanting to try to get some more consistency going into the last 4 races though. Jakarta was not great. This race was much better, but another bad race like Jakarta in the next 4 races, and that could be championship over for him, especially since one of the true drivers I haven't talked about yet has been on an absolute heater recently. So number 2, 2 drivers left, and this driver I thought honestly had a pretty good race before they were kind of taken out at the very end of the race, and that was Max Gunther. He was up in the really solid points position, was having a really good race in the Maserati, was the highest of the DS powered cars, and then basically was kind of had a bit of a skirmish with Bird. You can say whoever was at fault or if it was a racing incident for that. But that being said, I did think he had a really good race overall before that incident. Now, of course, number 1 on a streak of 5 straight podiums, 3 of which are P2, is of course none other than Jake Dennis. So really excellent race by Dennis today. I thought, if he was a bit unlucky maybe to not win the race outright, he looked like he had to move on to get into that P2 a couple laps earlier, which maybe he could have challenged Cassidy towards the end, but it wasn't to be. But that being said, going from pole to P2, given all the other chaos that happened, I think he's going to be pretty happy with that. And he's the championship leader and is well-deserved, I think. So that's my power rankings after the Portland ePrix. Pretty good race, I thought, pretty excellent. And of course, we have, I think, the Rome ePrix, and I think 3 weeks time, I believe, in Rome. So that should be pretty fun. Looking forward to that. So thank you so much for watching. Please like the video if you enjoyed. Please leave your comments. Who did you think had the best weekend? Who do you think had a bit of a stinker this past weekend? And please subscribe to the channel as well if you'd like to see more content. It really helps out. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.